Hello, Tiger friends. Hey, everybody. It's Jason Blaha here, and once again, it is time for another Orc Mode workout. And today was Max Effort Press Day, although I don't know if we'd really call it a Max Effort Press Day. But just a quick reminder for those of you who watch these videos, please click like down below. It would be greatly appreciated. You know what? Benching didn't feel right today. Came up, did my first ramp up, went up to just 257 plus the 50 pounds of bands, and it didn't feel right at the top. Felt grindy. I'm like, you know what? I'm not even going to push it all out today on a single. I got a nice little heavy single. I need to get in and just get my quality rep work in. And something am starting to realize, the 20 rep stuff isn't going that great for me for upper body. We go back to 10s. I've got great results with 10s. The 20s are pretty phenomenal for my lower body. I've continued to hit squat PRs, good morning PRs, everything else off 20s. And I've always used a fair amount of 20s throughout there, and I found it always contributes to squat and deadlift PRs. I feel like right now, though, the 20s working very, very well for my lower body. I feel like for upper body, it's probably just too high overall. Maybe some smaller movements, you know, biceps, rear delts, things like that. Sure, absolutely. Right? Some of those smaller muscles. So I'm just going to go back and program off 10s. And you know what? The 10s felt good today. And I'm keeping with my trend of what I'm doing on rebuilding the incline and the overhead press. But you know what? These felt good. I said, okay, I didn't go to an all-out 10 rep max. Let me just start with 225. Pause on the close grip. Every rep is pause. Did a quick 3x10. Felt good. Although I don't feel quite as much chest as I do with the 20s on this, but I got really good delt. I felt chest, obviously. I felt a lot of shoulder, a lot of tricep, and that's what we want. That's what we expect with a closer grip benching. So again, happy with it. Felt good. Felt good. And I'll just start ramping this back up from here. I'll just load it back up. I'll probably just micro load it, do 10s, and see if we can continue that trend and get my strength back up on the 10 rep sets, and should be transferring over to maxes. Now I will say though, my delts feel very much like a weak link on the benching right now. And we know, based upon the detraining I saw and rehabbing the shoulders and then coming back and how weak I am at incline and overhead press, we know my delts are kind of a limiting factor. I feel like my pecs and triceps are actually decently strong right now. I feel like they're holding me back. They need to continue to grow. We're going to put a very, very heavy focus on triceps. And I feel like the incline bench will help chest a lot. I feel so much chest activation on an incline, even a 45 degree, especially even with a closed grip. And I think it's that long range of motion. It just puts that stretch on my pecs. So I feel like, though, as far as the tendon health goes, 10s, a lot of 10 rep sets were still fairly high reps. I think that's going to be good for my pec tendons. I think it's going to be good for tendons overall. I'm going to continue with it. Again, we had that phase, though, of a couple of weeks of doing all the 20s. And it gives a great pump, and it probably did help with my overall tendon health and probably helping with my shoulder recovering quite well. But it's time to get a little more tension on. And 10s is a nice, good balance, right? 10s is a nice, good balance. Very, very effective balance for hypertrophy, but not just endless amounts of reps, okay? And it works well. It works well. So went back over to 10s on this, just started with 225. I'm like, well, let me just keep my closed grip bench and my pin lay row together. And I did 3 types of rows today. Okay, 3 types of rows. I did 3 types of big presses. Let's do 3 types of rows to hit slightly different angles. Here's the thing. This lets me really note what I feel. And what I thought's interesting, I've said my middle back. And some of it feels like lower trap, lower lat, all that stuff, middle trap. Certain parts of my back really light up when I hit a max squat. And it doesn't even matter which bar I use. I feel like it's my weak link. Okay? This particular row today hit that area. That area got a good pump and a burn and a lot of fatigue. Right where I feel it. Right exactly where I feel it when I squat. Because my legs are not limiting my squats at this point. I mean, even that 605 camber bar squat the other day, I didn't even feel my quads. Like sometimes on a max squat, I'll feel a little bit of quad light up, almost a little bit of quad strain almost on a max. That one, I didn't even feel them. I felt my back. For that 605, it's been my heaviest squat to date in a long time. And actually, let me go out on a limb and say lifetime, my best ever back squat was 605, ever in my life. So, and that's probably while being bigger in my 20s than I am now. So, I mean, we're at a point where we're about to cross into lifetime best. But I feel that back limiting it. My quads are not limiting me. They're not limiting me. So I need to be looking at the different rows and figure out what's going to hit the different parts of my back at the different angles. And it's giving me some different tools to analyze that of what do I feel where relative to my big lifts. Now the incline, because it went so bad last time, I'm like, well, let's do the 10s this time. I went up a little bit, just went to 135. You know, these felt pretty good. Now this was pain-free. So this is good. Now the thing that I noticed though, my body doesn't like certain types of unracks. I can't reach back very far. That's very uncomfortable on my shoulder. I have to unrack it far. So I have to be careful where I set the J hooks. And I need to be fairly far under it. But I'm pressing these low on my chest and I'm doing a bar path that's fairly towards the feet, not towards my face. Because again, my triceps have gotten stronger. I'm able to do that because I've done so much tricep work, and we need to get more tricep work. It's allowing me to use more tricep on the lockouts. It's giving me a cleaner bar path. So I can pretty well avoid those J hooks on these, even though I'm unracking fairly far under there, just for shoulder health purposes. And this wasn't bad. So I think what I'm going to do on these, I'm just going to try to add 5 pounds every workout for a bit. Because I did the 2 sets of 10, got a really good pump, and then I managed to get 12 reps on the 3rd set. And I know this is light, but keep in mind this is detrained. I've got atrophy in those areas. I've gone through a lot of shoulder rehab. So this is going to be a little weak. And we know it's a weak link. We know it's limiting my benching, my whole front delts. But I felt a lot of chest on this. Even with the 135, I got a really, really good chest pump. Even though I felt more of it on the upper chest, I felt it through my whole chest. And we know that the incline bench is actually a good chest exercise. People can argue about it all they want. Well, it might not hit the lower. Well, it does hit the lower chest. We know that it does. Yes, there's more emphasis on the upper half. But that long range of motion, look at that stretch, especially with my arms, because I have those ape arms. I've got those long arms. That close grip on the incline is such a deep stretch at the bottom. It's such a long range of motion. And obviously, delts and triceps are doing a lot of the work, but the chest is really working hard here. This is a great chest builder. So this will help me with my benching anyways. And again, I'm doing closer grip, so we're going to need to overdevelop delts and triceps. Then I went back to some of these. I wanted to try my chest supported rows. And again, finding a perfect angle is a little bit tough with this. So I don't get quite the stretch that I'd like, but it's still a dead stop. And obviously that's my farthest range of motion. You know, people will say, well, it's almost touching. But if I use a straight bar, it's not enough range of motion. That's the beauty of this bar. It gives you that extra range of motion so that you can get a bit deeper and be on a bench. Now, this will be great later for chest development for benching. But I have this bar. I don't even bench with it. But I found it. I wanted one forever to have in my collection. I got it, and I don't make a lot of use of it. This is a good use of it. And I think I didn't even go this heavy with these before, but I'm like, well, let me get in. I think because of the rest pause nature of this movement, I can get 10, I think, with this 205. And it was pretty hard to get 10. Last rep was very tough. I had to take a quick breather to be able to pull it each time. Now, the interesting thing, I did not feel the part of my back I feel on the squat on these. Okay? So it might be, is it lower trap? Is it mid-back erectors? I don't know. But I didn't feel it. Now, I felt a lot of lat, and I felt like a lot of rear delt and rhomboid. Like that whole area, I felt all of those muscles. They got a really, really good pump on this. I didn't feel that lower part of the lat down by the lower trap and mid traps. Doesn't mean they didn't get worked. But, again, because I have no back support involved with this, maybe there is something to do with that shear stress being put there. Because the rows, once I went back to 10, so I'm hitting 225, the rows I felt that area tremendously. That's part of my back I feel in the squats. This, everything I felt was higher up above that. You know, which again makes sense. Look at the downward angle. So that's what I'm doing. I'm hitting 3 different angles because on Pendlay rows I'm almost 90 degrees from my torso. This, because I'm up at an incline and then chest supported, what is it? It's a lower angle. So it's going to hit upper back a little more. Okay. And then we'll get over to the inverted rows in a minute. Then I did my overhead press. Uh, did the same thing here. I had been messing, just trying to rebuild these up. I was doing 20s with 275, just went up to 105, got 10, 10, 12. So we'll do the same thing as the incline. We'll just add 5 pounds each time. And you know what? If I, even when I get back to the point to where I can do 135 for 3 by 10 with this, that'll be a victory. And I know that's not super impressive. Okay, that's not super impressive because I used to do 5 by 10 with 135 all the time when I was maxing at 225. But all things considered, I'm happy even being able to do this. Now, I will say my right shoulder sounded like a bowl of Rice Krispies while doing these. I went through that same thing with my reverse flies because the reverse flies seem to have helped my shoulder tremendously. That's kind of my mobility and rehab at this point. Reverse flies, and I'm doing like at least 10 sets a week. They, for a while, made that crackling popping on every rep. Then it stopped. They no longer do it. Now this exercise is doing it. So I think what's happened is that we just have either maybe some scar tissue or calcification around some of the tendons. It just needs to break up because it stopped doing it on the rear delt flies. Okay? Now it's just doing it on this. So as we go through these movements, I think the joint is just getting healthier, and whatever is causing some of it to have seized up a little bit and become more immobile, it seems to be breaking it up. Whether it's some scar tissue calcification, just some stiffness, whatever it happens to be, each movement that I do, once I do it for a couple of weeks, it goes away. So the rear delt flies no longer do that, and I'm going to continue to pursue those aggressively. I think that a lot of my problems in general came from weak rear delts. Well, now that I'm having to rebuild up my whole delt, how do we resolve that? Because front delts are going to have to get a lot bigger and stronger. We're going to have to hammer those rear delts really hard so that they stay caught up. Get them caught up, keep them caught up. They're going to be an ultra high priority for me. But I'm noticing though that again, the rear delt flies don't cause that crackling anymore. That sound, and it's not painful, it's just, I can hear it. I can physically hear it. Now the overhead pressing is causing it. So once the overhead press stops causing it, I think we're going to see a lot of good stuff happening with the mobility returning. But again, rear delts, and then I'm doing some hangs. I'm doing a little bit of hang work every day. I'm not getting super aggressive with it because again, I don't want to injure myself. But I am doing a little bit of hanging. It's not a true dead hang. I don't pick my feet up. I just hang with my body weight with my feet still on the ground. Okay, because I weigh like 227 right now. But the hanging, and there is some data and some experts on that with the hanging, improving mobility potentially and actually preventing shoulder impingement. Okay, so what am I dealing with? I had impinged my shoulder doing pull-ups, and then I have had an inflamed and strained infraspinatus. Okay, the infraspinatus is starting to feel a lot better with the rear delt work and the daily massage and soft tissue work. Like I do dig my massager in it, I dig a lacrosse ball into it. It's improved tremendously. It's not completely gone, but it is very notably improved. Okay, the impingement seems to be gone. But that dead hang is still very uncomfortable, and it's because I think it pulls on the infraspinatus and stuff still. It makes that whole area stretch, and it hurts it a little bit. It definitely hurts. But as we continue to build all that up, and I think as I've restored mobility and I build the rear delts and put a very, very, very heavy focus on those rear delts, I think we're going to be good. So back over to those inverted rows. They hit a different area again because we've got, a completely different angle. We have almost an incline type angle. So we're back to a little more lower part of the lat and traps. And I get a tremendous bicep pump, and basically I do those, my grip gives out with the axle bar. It's one of my biggest grip training tools. Then I did my JM presses. I almost don't want to call these JM presses because people get angry. I would just say, well, I don't do them like JM Blakely, I do them like Eric Spoto. Well, we can't call them a Spoto press because he already has a different press with his name. And if I give it my own name and call it the Blaha press, people will accuse me of stealing it from Eric Spoto's way of doing the JM press. So you can't win, can you? Let's just call it the tricep press that every time I quit doing it, my triceps shrink and my bench goes down. How about we call it that? We call it the tricep exercise that every time I spend a couple months doing it, my bench shoots up 20 pounds. And when I quit doing it, particularly when people complain I'm not doing it right, and then I say, well, maybe I shouldn't do it. You know, when I take it back out, my bench goes down. Can we just call it that lift? The lift that improves my bench and makes my triceps get bigger? Because as soon as I do this lift for 2 or 3 weeks, my sleeves all get tighter on all my shirts. And my bench goes up. So I guess we could just call it the tricep builder, the bench improver. And that's the thing that people have to remember with Blakely. He said, even if you do this exercise wrong, you'll still get great results. And I think Eric's photo shows that. But this is what's the most comfortable way for me to do it. And I feel it really, really, really hammer my triceps. And my bench goes up. So we're going to go back and just work it in. I'm going to do it. We're going to work on it. And then I finished off. I'm like, you know what? I've done 9 sets of rows. I probably don't need any extra bicep work. But just to make sure my biceps and forearms are finished off, I did a set of hammer curls to failure. Because again, I've already got 9 sets of rowing. That's a lot of pulling volume. But just to be sure, I did a set of hammer curls to failure. My biceps and forearms got pumped pretty good from it. They were cramping a little bit afterwards. It's like, okay, that's just finishing that area off. Now, triceps are going to be a lot more important for me as a strength athlete. They really need to matter more. But, you know what? A little bit of bicep work always thrown in after the rowing, not a bad idea. We don't want to overdo it, though, and get tendonitis, because I do so much rowing. I mean, it's 9 sets of rows twice a week. But I think a set or 2 of curls in there at the end still could be warranted. I may change it up. I started hammer curls today because they can improve grip along with bicep, forearm, everything else. So I'm like, let's just throw these in at the end and take it all the way to failure. And I did. So I hope it has been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.